Claire, I just,
Yeah.
looking at the reaction from Republicans on Herschel Walker, looking online, hearing what they said yesterday, it's very obvious. And they have said it, by the way. This is not me putting words in their mouth. Character doesn't matter. National security doesn't matter. They're even saying this abortion doesn't matter. Nothing but power matters. They're saying it. They only care about power. Americans deserve more. Americans should want more. Americans should demand more. But right now they're not, Claire. And these are disturbing times. These Republicans are admitting publicly that they're operating in a valueless void, that they don't care about anything but power. That used to actually damage candidates and used to damage parties. Are we beyond that now?
It's going to be interesting to see how history finishes this chapter of the Trump era and the embracing of lying. I mean, lying is now an ethos. It's now a party platform for the Republican Party. And it was interesting, the guests we had earlier talking about lying to the troops and lying to America about Vietnam. That's what Putin is doing in Russia. He's lying about Ukraine. It's not going well because of those lies, because there is not the support of the troops for what he is doing. And I think ultimately, the lying that has become so fundamentally part of the fabric of the Republican Party is going to have a bad ending for them. It may not be in these midterms. It may not even be in 2024. But at some point in time, the American people are going to recognize the lying for what it is, and they're going to say, we've had enough.
And guys, Donald Trump made a bet when he handpicked Herschel Walker. One was that Republicans wouldn't dare cross Donald Trump in the choice he made. He's been proven correct on that. And also a bet that he won himself in 2016, which is that character doesn't matter, policy chops don't matter, having ideas about the challenges facing the country doesn't matter. If you're famous and well-liked and you're willing to say anything and stay in the fight no matter what comes at you, you can win. And Herschel Walker's running neck and neck despite, the list is so long we don't have time. The allegations against him from his ex-wife, the children we learned about that he has, and then this latest allegation about the abortion. But it doesn't matter to voters. And that's what Donald Trump has been proven right again, or at least to the leadership, I should say, of the Republican Party, who said none of that matters. We think he can win. We like him. He's famous. We love him in this state. He won us a national championship and a Heisman Trophy. We're with Herschel, come hell or high water.
Yeah, despite all the lies, despite lying about working for law enforcement, despite lying about graduating.
Is he even fit to serve?
No, he's not. And they know he's not fit to serve. They want the vote. They want the power. That's all it's about. And this is, again, Willie said something that for me, again, is just mind-boggling. I got into politics because of policies, because of things I believed in, because of things I wanted to fight for. Policy doesn't matter anymore to Republicans. It's so funny. You hear Republicans and right wingers talk about how horrible Joe Biden is in press conferences, and sometimes he stutters, sometimes he stumbles around, sometimes he loses his train of thought. I'd stack that up against Donald Trump any day of the week, where Trump is so void, so vacant when it comes to policies, when it comes to understanding even the basics of domestic
American
policy
values,
or foreign policy, or constitutional norms, or history. There's just really no comparison. But again, you look at Liz Cheney. Here's somebody that had a 95%, like me, had a 95% conservative rating with an ACU. Now they're calling her a lib because she doesn't go along with what an authoritarian former game show host wants her to go along with. Again, policies just don't matter. And now you have the Republican Party, now you have CPAC, now you have a growing wing of Trump Republicans supporting authoritarians, supporting strongmen. CPAC had started with Trump. then it went to Orban, then it went to Vladimir Putin. But that's not really a surprise, because before the Ukrainian invasion, just look at any polls and see how Vladimir Putin's approval rating spiked in the Republican Party among rank and file Republicans. There is a wicked authoritarian strain in the Republican Party, in Boston parlance, wicked, in the Republican Party, and it's all about strong men. And they worship strong men, they worship authority, they worship power. No values when it comes to policy for so many of these members of Donald Trump's cult. Let's bring in right now former senior operations officer with the CIA, Mark Polymeropoulos. He's an NBC security, national security, and intelligence analyst, and he's the author of Clarity and Crisis: Leadership Lessons from the CIA. Mark, I want to get you involved here, and let me first of all talk about, like, this morning I saw a tweet. I'm not going to even mention the guy's name because I just don't want to promote any of these haters who think. And I've been seeing it a lot of my adult life where people just because the other party's in power at the White House, suddenly America sucks. That's how I've heard it. And I will say, I've heard it from both sides. I've heard it from Republicans when Democrats are in power. I've heard it from Democrats when Republicans are in power. Democrats couldn't call George W. Bush Hitler enough. A large chunk of them actually thought that 9/11 was an inside job, if you look at the polls. I'm so sick and tired of people tearing down the United States of America because their party's not in power. And we heard it, and we hear it from the Trump right. I read it this morning in a piece where this guy who's been a so-called conservative writer for years is talking about the thin veneer of American civilization. It's all coming to an end. America is collapsing. America's failing. How many times do we hear so-called Republicans attacking our intel community, so-called conservatives attacking our military? This guy was attacking our military again. Mark, let me lay this out for you. Let me lay this out for the American people right now. And please, I can't wait to hear what you have to say about it, because you've been around the world. You've seen America from the inside and the out. Let's just go down the list for a second. The dollar right now, stronger against other world currencies than it has been probably in half a century. Poverty at 50-year lows, right? Job openings at historic highs. Job growth at a historic high. Our military, if you want to take the measure that's been taken throughout time, and if you look at Paul Kennedy's classic from 1987, The Rise and Fall of the Great Powers, it's always, what is the power relative to the rest of the world? And by that measuring stick, the United States is stronger militarily relative to the rest of the world than we have ever been. Ever been. Not since 1945. Since 1776. You look at our economy relative to the rest of the world, stronger than it has been. You look at poverty rates at 50-year lows. You look at all of these things that are supposedly collapsing. But I think the thing I take the greatest offense at is when you have people, when you actually have senators talking about how our military is weak and woke, when they are tougher, and I say this with the greatest of respect, they're tougher SOBs than they've ever been. They've learned from the mistakes we've made over the past 20 years. You put 2,500 U.S. troops in Syria, they hold off the Iranians, they hold off the Russians, they hold off the Iranians, they hold off ISIS, they hold off Turkey, they hold off everybody. And by the way, when the Russians decide they're going to attack, what happens? They're dead. They're dead in about 5 minutes, because our U.S. troops are tougher and stronger than they've ever been. And yet, Mark, you have Republicans tearing down the United States military because they don't like the fact they lost the last election. It's really grotesque, and it reminds me of why conservatives said they hated the left in the 1960s and 1970s. But the radicalism now is on the other foot.